Hello everyone, my name is Jacket Guy, and about a year ago I purchased the Bachmann trade set, the lumberjack, and a few other things. I couldn't test the set before I bought it since I didn't actually go for the set. I was going for some Denver and Rio Grande Western passenger cars, and I just so happened to find this set in the collection. After getting the set home, I tested it and found that the motor worked, but it just made the locomotive shake. I took the model apart and found that the axle gear is sliding on the axle, so it is turning, but it's not making the axle turn with it, and thus it makes it shake. So it has sat in a pile of parts since then. But now I have a new chassis and a screwdriver. I purchased the Sofaro for $60, and it's a much better one than what came in the lumberjack train set. It has metal side rods, bell, and handrails, not to mention a little different style of cab. Between the two models, I will be switching the cab, side tanks, boilerplate, and cab handrails. To start disassembly, we will first go with the tanks. There's two screws underneath each tank that hold it to the frame, and once you take those out, you'll have to pop it off as it's a little bit stuck, but not too hard. Next, we will go to the cab, and in order to do this, there are 4 tabs you will need to push in. However, Bachmann designed this in such a way that you have to disassemble the whole model before removing it. However, I'm going to show you how to do that and not make the same mistakes I did. First, you unscrew the smoke box from the steam chest. Next, there are 2 screws that hold the motor and frame to the boiler on the rear. Before you try to pull the boiler and frame apart, do make sure that you take out the handrails on the front of the boiler so that you don't rip them out. Next, you will have to unscrew the 4 screws that hold the tank mountings to the boiler. Do note that sometimes there are 4 screws, sometimes there are 6 screws, it just depends on what year the model is. And once the tank mountings are off, you should be able to push on the 4 tabs and pull the cab off. Do be patient, or otherwise you will break these tabs, as they're not particularly well designed, and the front ones especially can be tricky. Here are the 2 cabs side by side, and there is a bit of a difference besides color between them, mainly in the handrails in both their shape, color, and material. In order to remove the handrails, it's a little bit different between the metal and the plastic ones. The plastic ones have 2 tabs on the inside of the cab that you push together, and then you have to push them outwards. And you can also sometimes remove them with just your hands. However, if you can't remove them with your hands, I highly recommend getting a tweezer. You really don't want to break these if you're going to reinstall them. For the metal ones, again, some of them I could just pull out. For the ones I couldn't pull out, I again used the tweezers and I just pushed them through, and they came right out very easily, no other hassle. Reinstalling the handrails is the opposite process. Line up the tabs or line up the handrails themselves, and you just push them in and they should install. You can glue them back in if you really want to, however I wouldn't recommend this in case you ever want to switch them out for metal handrails, assuming you put plastic ones back in, or in case you ever want to try to make handrails yourself. To reinstall the cab, it is a very similar process of lining up the tabs and then just pushing down until it clicks in. When reassembling the boiler, do note that the bottom of the boiler's tabs go forward and they only install in one direction, as well as the side tank mountings. They also install in one direction, the gaps go forward. It is also worth noting that the side tank mountings are different between the years. This particular one had it where there's a tab that goes into the cab, and the previous one did not. So I cut the tab off, and don't be afraid to do this because you won't see it with how closely the side tank sits to the cab. And after screwing the smoke box back into its steam chest and the rear frame into the cab, the locomotive is reassembled. Next, we will be doing the boiler plate, and this is actually probably the simplest process. I've already taken the old one off the old model, and what you have to do is take a little screwdriver and just push down gently until the little ball on the top mounting comes out, and then you should be able to pull the door off. And reinstallation is the same process with the same screwdriver. Push it down a little bit until it pops back in. The side tanks is also a very simple process in that you just have to line them up and start screwing them back in. Although do be careful, as the older mountings, their thread is thinner, or at least it's not as well manufactured, and you will strip it, and basically the screw will never come back out. And with all that work done, here's how the model looks. I actually really like how the model came out, and I think it does still look very nice. And if you didn't know that this was an older Bachmann model, that side tanks were donated to a newer one, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.